Hello everyone and welcome back to Whisky Wednesday. This is a little bit of a blast from the past because I think I promised you this video over 9 months ago. This is Dingle single malt, quite heavily laid into recently as well. Not in terms of reputation, just the bottle. I drank a fair bit of the bottle. I reviewed their single barrel port cask, or their small batch port cask. It was like November or December, I think. And since then, or even before then, they had released a standard bottle of single malt. Now they're based in County Kerry. They are a triple distilled single malt. It's aged in ex-bourbon and ex-sherry. It doesn't state what the casks are, so we can safely assume again that the bourbon is just first and second fill bourbon, and the sherry is probably Oloroso. I think otherwise you'd probably state it. It's non-chill filtered, it's 46.3%. It does not state if it's natural colour, but there's a few brands that do that anyway. I would imagine that the distillery currently is in such a small-ish capacity that their batch variations with colour do deviate quite a bit. So there's probably a bit of colouring in it. I'm happy to be proven wrong if that is wrong though. Put together by Graham Coull, who used to run Glen Moray and is now doing some pretty fun stuff in Ireland. The dog is sat next to me, so if you do hear any sort of pig-esque noises, it is her. And yeah, this has been sat here for a while, and I will say, I do love this you see this little straw man, this little fella everywhere. He's on the lid, he's embossed on the bottle, he's on the label. I do quite like that. I think it's a very solid bit of marketing to establish it in people's minds. And yeah, I've been drinking this quite a bit recently. It's not a bad whiskey for hot weather. You'll find out why in a second. And I've been liking it more and more. It was one of those brands I was a little bit dubious of, and I have no idea why. You try and remove bias when you get a hold of bottles and stuff. Oh, by the way, can you see that tan line? Look at that. Probably won't show up on camera. I say tan line, it's just a burn. Nonetheless, let's dive into this Dingle single malt. And the distillery is 10 years old this year, so opened in 2012. So big year for them. And hopefully they'll release some incredible stuff to celebrate that. But let's have a smell, let's have a taste of this Dingle single malt. Two things jump out straight away. One is barley, and I know that's a very obvious thing to say, but there is a creamy gristiness to this. I know those two words are kind of a juxtaposition, but think of creamy barley and then think of barley grist, and it is so prevalent on the nose. Also in this is heather, and heather honey. And I know we always associate heather and heather honey and heather smoke with Highland Park. This isn't smoky at all, but there is that beautiful floral yet earthy note of heather running through it. She's just getting comfy. There you go, she's comfy. There is still quite a big rose note in this, not orchid fruit, but just orchids. I feel like I'm walking through a meadow. There's lilies and violets. There's even a little bit of lavender in this. But honey, apricot, definitely, and even a little bit of peach. So purely based on the smell alone. Oh, and I did make a cocktail out of this the other day, and just garnished it with a little bit of lime, but squeezed the lime juice into it, and I was amazed at how well the lime actually worked with this too. So it doesn't smell of lime, but for the sake of all of you people that like making cocktails, it does pair quite well with lime and lime juice. But an extremely fresh, floral, bright Irish single malt. I've used the word bright a lot in I think the last 3 reviews in a row. Because at the minute, those are the kind of whiskies I'm drinking. But yeah, I was drinking this last night in our little garden, and it was just going down an absolute treat. But let's taste it. So the first thing you're going to notice is the texture of this whiskey. It is particularly oily. Really fills every sort of corner of your mouth. She's still not comfy. With those meadow flowers and those nice kind of almost botanical fruit-driven aromas, it moves into an area of gentle spiciness which begins to grow, almost kind of swells around your mouth. Whenever some of the liquid, because it is such an oily texture, like finds a corner of your mouth, you get this really nice sweet start, and then the spice jumps in and it starts to swell and build and just become a lot more interesting. Finish wise, it's not the longest finish in the world. It's, if you're going to grade it, you'd probably call it like medium, like short to medium. But even as I swallow it, I can still taste that apricot, like dried apricot. There's a little bit of pineapple coming through in it now. And one of the final notes I got as I was tasting it is the sherry influence. But because it's a coastal distillery too, there's a slight saltiness in the back of it, and the salt with the sherry makes this really interesting finish, which kind of blends in with the aroma that starts off malty and then moves into these other sort of, you know, meadowy planted things, and then into dried and fresh fruit. It's really cool. It's a very, very cool whiskey. The finish gets a little hotter the second time round. And it finishes on a note of almost like warm vanilla custard. Like the heat from it, possibly even a bit of cinnamon. And there is a little brown sugar note towards the back of it too. This is about 50 quid a bottle. And that, in terms of Irish whiskey, it puts it amongst some very strong company. You know, you're looking directly at things like Redbreast, Green Spots get in there. Most of the Middleton range, really. There's a lot of Teeling products for less than that, and some at that price point too. What's Connemara cost? I mean, I was going to say, what does Connemara cost these days? But it's a very different style, so it doesn't really matter. But I think this deserves quite a lot of our attention, and I think it deserves some plaudits too. The port cask that we reviewed a while ago is very different and very interesting, and this too has its different points. Because if you gave me that blind, I don't think I'd ever say it was Irish. I don't think, like, minus being made in Kerry and being triple distilled, there is nothing particularly Irish about this whiskey. At all, really. The floral, like, apricot thing, yeah, I get that with Redbreast and all that kind of stuff. And Redbreast is also quite creamy, as is Green Spot and Yellow Spot and all the stuff. But if you like Irish whiskey and you like Scottish whiskey, if you just like whiskey altogether and you're looking for something a little bit different, if this is available in your area, I would highly recommend you check it out. Overall, I'm going to give that a score of 8. I think it is pretty good value. I think it's a cool new brand amongst the host of them that are currently blowing up in Ireland. And yeah, I think, you know, congratulations to Graham for making something really, really fun. So yeah, that's an 8 out of 10 from me. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next week. Cheers.